Okay, so a few more people will be tuning in, I think. So let's just prepare for this morning's meditation by just doing a little short meditation just to tune into the body again as people zoom in. So when you're ready, closing your eyes. Get yourself set up to meditate. And as soon as you close your eyes, just bringing your awareness into your body. That same thing, starting the day with opening up to all of your experience. And it's so tempting just to sort of ignore your experience and just crack on. But we've decided to start our day by actually confronting our experience, confronting ourselves, and that's absolutely central to the Buddhist vision of life. So as best as you can, just tuning into your whole body, sitting here. And again, see if you can soften your eyes, softening all the muscles around your eyes. Softening your brow. See if you can check if you're clenching your jaw. We're very often doing that without noticing it. Or puckering up the mouth. We're not using our face just now. Let's see if you can release your shoulders. Let your shoulders drop down your back. Just have this sense of your shoulders smoothing out, soothing out. Calming down. And then see if you can soften your belly. Again, we very often grip with our belly, and we don't notice that, but it affects our mind. Softening your belly. And then just see if you can relax your legs so you're not gripping with the large muscles of your thighs. So this is how we can always begin a meditation, just by looking at these areas of the body that are kind of linked with stress and strain. So if you can soften your jaw, your shoulders, your belly, and your thighs, you'll already start calming down. Noticing the weight of your body on the cushions, your feet on the floor. Opening up to the sounds around you. And then when you're ready, opening your eye and coming out of the meditation. Okay, good. Yes, I want to say a bit more about meditation, and we'll meditate again as usual. And then, so tomorrow I'll be going back on the meditation challenge on the Saturday morning class, so do come and join me at the LBC at 10:30 tomorrow, or join online. And what I've been doing is just introducing the beginning of a sutra on the perfection of wisdom. And I was saying, I don't know whether I've said that online, but I definitely said it in the class, that all of Buddhism is moving towards the perfection of wisdom, or it's expressing the perfection of wisdom. any experience of the perfection of wisdom is expressed as compassion, although the person who has wisdom doesn't experience it as compassion. Other people experience them as compassionate, but they don't experience themselves like that. They're just being themselves very, very naturally. They're not trying to be compassionate, and they're not being compassionate. They're just experienced like that by other people. And that's because they've had an insight into the nature of reality, and because they've had an insight into that self is not what we think it is. Self and world are not discrete in the way we assume. So other thing I was saying is that the Buddhist context for meditation is samadhi pranya, yeah. That to have any kind of insight into the nature of reality, you need it to be based on samadhi, which is usually translated as something like energized, calm, but has a very kind of technical and a bit boring translation. So I thought what I'd do today is just say a little bit more about how we enter into samadhi, and sort of give a bit more detail on that, and to sort of start to signpost where you might be going in meditation, assuming that you're meditating regularly, that you're going on retreat regularly, that you're coming to the Buddhist center regularly, etc., etc., that you're living a life of meaning and value based around the Buddhist vision. That's what I'm interested in. I'm not interested in meditation as some kind of standalone practice. I mean, you can be, that's fine, but I'm not. So samadhi is sometimes translated as meditation, but really it means something more like meditation proper. It's supra-conscious mental states. It's states of being and consciousness which transcend everyday awareness. Yeah. So you could break down meditation into three sort of stages, three kind of stages will do. I'm a bit tired today. So you've got preliminary consciousness, which is when you've just done that. When you sit down, you close your eyes and you think, or you try to open up to your body awareness. You sort of slightly try and persuade yourself that you're going to meditate. Part of you thinks I should have stayed in bed. Part of you thinks it's great I'm here. And over time you've made the right decision. Yeah. So preliminary consciousness is a kind of consciousness that we're often working with, isn't it, in meditation, which is a mind that keeps on going off on its own without us, as it were, where we wake up into, compelling, even compulsive stories that we're telling ourselves, about the past, about the future. They're thoughts, they're not facts. But we mistake them for facts. All that whole world of mental proliferation, prapuncture as it's called in Buddhism. Mostly what we're working with is preliminary consciousness. How, as it were, to deepen and move on from preliminary consciousness. And that's the everyday work of meditation, and we need to be doing that, every day, working with our mind, working with the hindrances, noticing ill will, working with that, noticing wanting, hankering, noticing that, etc., etc. That's all the work of preliminary consciousness. And Buddhism says that that's a very small part of consciousness. It says there's, the trouble is that's a very small part of consciousness, but we get stuck to it like a fly to fly paper. That becomes our home in a very narrow band of consciousness. For most of us, that's a tragedy of life. Not that terrible things happen to us necessarily, although that can happen, of course, but that we make do with very, very narrow, repetitive, even slightly narcotic aspects of consciousness, repetitive stories, self-justifications, blame, self-righteousness, self-pity, and so on. We just get stuck in that like a fly to fly paper, We don't mean to. It's not our fault. It's just what our mind does without us. But we can easily just stay at that level of preliminary consciousness and never move on. But yeah, Buddhism says that level of preliminary consciousness is a very tiny part of consciousness. Yeah, the level where the hindrances arrive, which is amazing given how much time we spend in that. But then, according to tradition, you can, if you work with preliminary consciousness in a patient, sustained and gentle way, and those three are the adjectives are important. So you need to be patient. You need to keep working, not just blob out and wool gather. And you need to be gentle, or better, subtle in how you work with your mind. If you keep doing that, without doubt, at some point, either on retreat or at home, you'll go into what's called access concentration. So that's the next level of concentration. Yeah, you've got preliminary concentration, which is where most of us are working most of the time in meditation, and that's just fine. We don't need to, be dismissive about that. That's absolutely vital. And then we need to go on to, sometimes we find ourselves rising up into access concentration. So what access concentration means is you start to feel access to samadhi. That's one way of putting it. Or it's a kind of like the space before you go into dhyana. And I'll tell you about dhyana in a minute. So access concentration is where you're pretty clearly meditating. One experiences it as now I am actually meditating. Before I was mostly distracted. And sometimes preliminary consciousness is like lighting a match in the wind. You try and become conscious, you try and become aware, and then your awareness is blown out almost immediately. Yeah, that's what preliminary consciousness can feel like, and that's why it's so important to be patient with that. Impatience simply slows down progress. So, but access concentration, you have this lovely feeling like I am actually basically meditating. I am actually doing something here, and you have a general sense of being on the focus of meditation. You basically are with the breath, or you're feeling metta. You're definitely cultivating metta. There might be distractions around, but they're nowhere near as strong. Yeah, that's why it's called access concentration. You're sort of gaining access to a new level of consciousness. It sort of lies between two spheres of consciousness. And they say that traditionally what they say there is that what happens in access concentration, if you have to work in a newly subtle way, the kind of way you were working in preliminary concentration is too crude for access concentration. So you have to work in a sort of subtler, more intelligent way, really, where you're responding to your experience with more kind of acuity and sensitivity. And what happens is you tend to either sink or drift. Yeah. So in access concentration, you're pretty much on my experience of it is more like I am actually meditating. My awareness is becoming more central than my distractedness. The balance of your mind tips, and you start to feel that you're cultivating awareness is more axiomatic of your experience just now rather than you getting lost in a distraction. But then what can happen is you either sink a bit, in other words, you fall a bit into sleepiness, and it's not quite sloth and torpor, but it's kind of like your mind just gets a bit sort of a bit blunted, a bit sleepy, you just sink a bit heavier, yeah. Or because you're getting into something more valuable in the meditation, you get slightly excitable and slightly grabby, like, this is going well, there's something in all this stuff about meditation after all. You start to feel a little bit slightly excitable, not very much, and what that means is you drift, yeah, you kind of drift away from the object. So you go, and if that happens for long enough, you just go back down into preliminary concentration. And the thinking can become sloth and torpor, and the drifting becomes hankering and wanting and craving and so on. Yeah. So you've got those two factors that you're working with in access concentration, is thinking and drifting. And what you need to do in access, once you experience yourself in access concentration, you need to look for the factors of dhyana. So dhyana is another word effectively for a more kind of technical Buddhist word for samadhi. There are supposed to be 4 or even 8 dhyanas, depending which system you follow. You don't need to worry about that. It doesn't really matter, all that stuff. And I can barely remember it. All you need to know really, particularly you need to know about first dhyana. So first dhyana, when you experience first dhyana, it's extremely pleasurable, sometimes ecstatically so. You feel very one-pointed on the breath or on the metta. You feel whole, and I want to come back to that because that's the most important thing. You feel this beautiful, almost sort of delicious sense of tranquility that has almost like an erotic feeling to it, if I can say that this early in the morning. It's this lovely sense of, it's just lovely. It's like a lovely sense of tranquility, of unity, of pleasure, of absorption, of happy absorption, of non-willingness. You are making an effort, but the ability to make an effort isn't an effort anymore. As soon as you touch into dhyana, you suddenly think, oh, I definitely want more of this. So what you've got, you see how access concentration is access into dhyana. I won't go on to the second, third, and fourth dhyana. That's not so important. And really, I'm not sure you experience it quite like that. It's a sort of tabulated way of talking about going deeper and deeper in meditation, and I'm not madly keen on those forms. So in access concentration, you're kind of on the breath, you're on the metta. And the main thing you're looking for is wholeness. So as I say, you need to work in a more subtle way in access concentration. And you're looking for psychophysical wholeness and steadiness and one-pointedness. And you're looking for pleasure. It's really kind of pleasure that will take you over the boundary of access concentration into dhyana. And the thing with pleasure is, as soon as you try and grab at pleasure in meditation, it disappears. It's a kind of, you must be careful not to grasp at pleasure because that just pushes it away. But you're looking for a kind of intrinsic sense of pleasure. Your mind, your feelings, and your body start to feel just more pleasurable, more unified. And that sense of unity feels like a relief. It's not just pleasurable, but feels like, it feels like you put down a heavy load. Or my metaphor for it is that we used to, in the childhood house I grew up in, used to have the washing machine in the kitchen. Do you remember those days, some of you, where you didn't have some separate place for washing machine? It was in the kitchen. So it was, had the spin cycle on, and you'd get used to the sound in the background. And then when the spin cycle went off, you got this lovely, oh God, you hadn't noticed that the noise of the machine was actually stressing your mind. And when it goes off, you have this lovely sense of relief. You have that, with the fan on the above your cooker and all that sort of thing. There's this lovely sense of relief, isn't there, when that noise that's been slightly stressing you turns off. Dhyana is like that. We don't realize how much, the Buddha would say, frankly, how much suffering we're experiencing, even in positive states of mind, how much noise and static our mind is prey to. And in dhyana, that gets turned either right down or actually off completely. And the experience is one of psychophysical relief, as if a noise that had been irritating you in the corner of your mind is finally turned off. So you want to sort of look for, in access concentration, and you can do this in preliminary concentration as well, is look for unity. And that's the thing I want to mostly concentrate on this morning's meditation. This sense of psychophysical unity, that your mind, your feelings, and your body are all coming together in a new wholeness. Wholeness is the gateway to depth. Yanavacha next week will be touching into insightful ways of looking, into Vipassana ways of looking. And Vipassana isn't really a meditation, it's an attitude to meditation. He'll be touching into that, I know, next week. And the only real valuable place to do that is when you have this sense of psychophysical wholeness, yeah, where, as I say, body, mind, intuitions all run together in a new unity, yeah, and that is the gateway to depth. That's always what takes you into access to concentration and then takes you further into dhyana. So look for that sense of unity, cultivate that sense of unity, of embodiedness. But it's funny, even when we talk about embodiedness, we can sort of fetishize the body, I think. I think modern people treat the body like an expensive car that they're showing off to themselves and their friends. There's nothing to do with that. It's actually to do with a kind of intrinsic body sense. The body felt from inside. But that's unified with thought. Like, for instance, there is thought in access concentration, but the thought is taking you into meditation, not taking you out of it. Sometimes people can be sort of too critical of thought. It's partly because what we mean is we're critical of propuncture, which is this sort of driven associative thinking. But what we're looking for in meditation is a kind of subtle creative thought that is helping our mind get into the meditation. So thought and body sensations, feeling tones, they're all running together in a new unity. We're not just trying to get into our body and get out of our head. These are they're just sort of rather crass ways of understanding meditation that have become weirdly habitual. You don't want to get out of your head. You never get, there's nothing wrong with your head. You need a really good head. We don't want to get out of it. It's the last thing we want to do. All we mean is we want to get out of that noisy, chattery, oh, that's a nice cat. Self-monologue, a bit distracted there, but it's a very nice cat. We want to get out of that. That's what we mean, yeah? So look for a unification in meditation and look for pleasure. Even cultivate pleasure. And the pleasure you're looking for in meditation doesn't need to be, a strong hit of pleasure. You're looking for a sustaining sense of well-being and ease and mild pleasure. That can actually get much stronger, but don't look for strong pleasure because it probably won't be there. We're looking for something much more everyday. The mild sense of ease. Even when you close your eyes after you've been looking to these screens, it's sort of, there's a mild sense of relief, isn't there, as soon as you close your eyes? Thank heavens I'm not looking into a screen anymore. It's that kind of very mild pleasure, the warmth of your hands, the warmth of your blanket around you, the sense of quietness and quietude. So let's meditate just now, and let's see, we'll do the mindfulness of breathing. Again, just go through the stages as you please, and but keep looking for unity of body and mind, unity of the breath and the body, your thoughts, your feelings, and so on, even consciously cultivating that unity. And then look for a sense of pleasure, sustaining pleasure. Pleasure is too strong a word sometimes, just mild okayness or rightness, and often in that sense felt in the comfort aspects of your body. So this time you can be tuning into the comfort of your body. Anything that sort of starts to lead you towards pleasure and unity. Okay? So setting yourself up to meditate. And when you're ready, closing your eyes. And as ever, we start with coming back to this direct sense of the body. And we're doing that so that we're not just meditating from our mind. We're including immediately the broader sensations of our body. So really feeling your feet on the floor, direct sensations of your feet on the floor. Feeling your knees on the floor if you're sitting on the floor. And these pressure points are just sort of louder sensations, so they're easier to tune into. Feeling the weight of your body on the chair or the cushions, and the direct sense of support, of pressure as you sit here. And see if you can connect up the sensations of your feet on the floor with the sensations of your backside on the chair or the cushions, so that you feel as aware of your whole legs as you do of those 2 points. So you can feel the whole expanse of your legs. Not the idea of your legs, not the mental image of your legs. The whole feeling, their weight, their warmth. Feeling the weight and warmth of your arms, warmth of your hands. So just have this sense that your whole body, whole system is calming down, quieting down. So in this meditation, we're going to focus on the breath, but we're going to keep coming back to cultivating this sense of unity, psychophysical unity, opening up to the body again and again, opening up to how we're feeling, not leaving all of that out as we try to attend to the breath. And then alternating between that and just keeping an eye out for pleasure, for subtle pleasure, and even looking for that, the warmth of your hands, the warmth of your blanket around you, the sense of quietness in your room. So see if you can cultivate wholeness and this subtle sense of well-being and pleasure for the next 15 minutes or so. Coming back to your body sitting on the chair or the cushion. Feeling the weight of your body on the chair or the cushion. And then when you're ready, opening your eyes and coming out of the meditation. Okay, so we'll have a bit of time for questions again, and Joe will have a look in the chat to see what we can talk about. Yeah, so just to remind, I'll get him to post a donation link as well. Yeah, so we're suggesting if you can, if you could give £100 towards the, well, really, it's not towards the meditation challenge. It's just a free thing, a free gift. You know what I mean? We're all just trying to give. I'm not thinking, hang on, how much would I be paid for this or anything? That'd be awful if I was. I charge more before 9 a.m. would be terrible, wouldn't it? Although I would if in another world. Yeah. So do give. If you can't afford 100, you could give. Obviously, you can give less, and if you can afford more, you could give more. Let's just try and create a world in which generosity is the touchstone, not what's the word, buying things and so forth. And then, tomorrow morning I'll be leading the meditation challenge in the LBC. So do come and join me in the morning, and I'll carry on exploring the Ratnaguna Samcharagatha. At least there's 4 lines of it, and that's going to be online as well. Then so here's what you can do from now. Then come and join me tomorrow. Then you join Yana Archer on Monday. It's amazing to have Yana Archer to be teaching us. We're very lucky. So not only join, but suggest your friends join as well. I mean, Yana Archer's clearly one of the best meditation teachers I've ever listened to. So it's a really ideal opportunity for people. And then, so do that week with him, and then join me on Life Before Attention on the 4th of February. So, and I've actually said the right title for a change. Patrick's nodding happily, because normally he has to correct me. Join me on Life Before Attention on the 4th. It's funny, this whole thing of mindfulness, the very word makes me feel bored, frankly. But our contemporary westernized vision of mindfulness is a long way away from the richly embodied, emotionally full, wisdom-based value of the world which the Buddhist tradition is teaching in mindfulness. So come along and learn, and that just will be together for 8 weeks then, and that means that you're much more likely to carry on meditating, much more likely to carry on working with your mind, much more likely to carry on practicing the Dharma. Yeah. So let's see, Job, is there any questions we can finish with?
So we had a question a bit earlier on, basically asking what to do when you've had an experience of going deeper in meditation. I think the word they used was a boundlessness, and then basically not wanting to go back to your usual mind or trying to cling on to that experience, and what to do about
that. That's a very good question. Very good question. It's interesting. I've known people who, looking back on their experience, it almost would have been better if they hadn't had an experience of boundlessness. I've known people who've had very strong meditation experiences and spend forever trying to get back to that in a kind of narrow, forced way, basically. I have one friend who, for ages, got into trouble with that, trying to get back to that experience. So the first discipline of having had a deeper meditation experience, call it samadhi, call it prajna, even call it what you will, is those experiences are not willed. You use your will to go from preliminary concentration into access concentration, and then in access concentration, you're trying to use your will in such a subtle way that something unwilled can arise, and that's what dhyana is, samadhi is, and it's very much what prajna is. When you have experiences of reality itself, you can never will it. And interestingly, when you have a touch of samadhi, look, there's a rainbow, isn't that? That's auspicious. I just glanced through my window. There's a beautiful rainbow in Bethnal Green. I don't know whether you got one there, but the universe is on our side. It's really lovely. Anyway, sorry, I was just trying to. So it's really it's really important. I mean, what those experiences do, they tell you, don't they, quite directly and clearly that there's much more to your mind than you thought. What they do is they confirm what Buddhism is saying, which is that the nivaranas, the hindrances, as they're translated into English, are preliminary consciousness is a tiny part of consciousness. You only have to have a touch of dhyana, a touch of insight, and you see that there's a vastly richer, extended world than the world that you live in. That's a really good experience to have, just to keep reminding you that your everyday consciousness is a limitation, is a contraction, is small and dusty and narrow. So I think it's really valuable to use it from that point of view. And to that, traditionally, what that would do, it would increase your faith in the Buddha Dharma, and you would practice the Buddha Dharma more intensively, more wholeheartedly, because you had a vision of where it was going. That's the best approach to have to it. The worst approach is to try and get back to it. You didn't get it by trying to get it. You got it by dealing with what's happening in your mind in meditation. You experience samadhi or dhyana or whatever it is, even touches of insight, because you were practicing meditation, not because you were trying to get an experience. The thing is that trying to get an experience can be weirdly strong, but slightly hidden even from yourself. I remember, for myself, I remember early on in the days of meditation, it was like I was meditating and sort of pretending to myself I wasn't trying to get something, but it was like I had a big baseball glove behind, gloved hand behind my back, and as soon as I had any nice experience, I'd try and grab it, and I think that's not uncommon, especially if you've had strong experience in meditation. You can be subtly actually just waiting to grab it. And you need to start to be aware that that's what you're doing, which is not as straightforward as it sounds, and literally tell yourself to back off, not to grab. But it's not as simple as you're just sort of sitting there waiting for something to happen or making something happen. Very often you tell yourself, oh no, I'm just watching my breath, it's no big deal, oh yeah, it's fine. But actually you're waiting for something to happen and to grab it. And as soon as you try and grab experience disappears in front of your eyes. It's like those fairy tales. As so often fairy tales speak of deep truth. If you try and find the door into the secret garden, you cannot find it. If you think you know where the door is, if you con yourself into believing that you're not looking for the door, but you are, you will not find the door. The door to the secret garden is never where it was last time. The door to deeper experience is always there. And if you engage with your experience deeply enough, with enough integrity and honesty, that door will appear, but not where you thought it was. Like I said just the other morning, I had this lovely little moment of joy on the tube. I was talking to someone and I sort of turned away and there was all this joy in my experience, like sort of a little glittery piece of water in my heart or something, glittering. And what you need to do then is just create a bit of space allow that to open up more and more. But as soon as you try and get that, you destroy the fairy tale magic. We're looking to be enchanted. We're not looking to get something for ourselves. We're looking to pass through the door into the secret garden. And all those fairy tales, they're trying to say, do you know what, there is much more. It's just that you can't get there with your everyday mind, with your wanting things, not wanting things, and thinking that this is going to make me groovy and special, etc. But those things are very subtle. So often when you've had those experiences, you really need to be quite strong with yourself and work with great integrity and keep letting go of trying to get something. You're trying to just work with whatever arises without trying to get something from it, which is a practice of patience. It's a practice of forbearance, the practice of love in a way, that you're willing to just love experience and be interested in it and curious about your experience rather than trying to have another experience than you're having. So much one of the reasons why we don't go deeper in meditation is that instead of engaging with the experience we actually have, we're hankering after an experience we'd like. We very often think our current experience is not good enough and we want a better one. Nothing wrong with that instinct. Our current experience is not good enough, but we won't get to the new experience by being basically aversive to the experience we actually have. The whole practice is coming up to the experience you actually have and actually working with that. The rest is not your business, as T.S. Eliot says. Yeah. But yeah, very, very good question. And listen, we've gone a bit over time, so probably we should finish. That's a good place to finish, a really good place to finish. So I hope to see you tomorrow, and I hope Yanavansh will see you Monday morning for another week of meditations. And let's have a big unmute.